Hello everybody, we finally started on time. Welcome to our CRYENGINE 5.1 live stream. Today we have three super awesome guests. I'm actually really excited about this one as well. And right now with me it's David K. We've had him before for our first ever stream, but we don't want to talk about that one.
No.
Hi Dave, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's been busy time lately.
Oh yeah, I bet.
But I think we're going quite well now. So.
Okay, good. So for this stream, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have like a two-part stream. So right now we're going to dedicate this part only to GitHub and GitHub questions to David. So please, for this half of the stream, just David. Then the rest of the stream, we're gonna bring Achim and Nico from the core team, and they are going to talk about 5.1, the past, the present, the future maybe. So let's see what they bring for us. Oh, somebody said my prince. I think that's with you. I think that one's for you. Okay, so let's talk about GitHub. I saw you stay late in the office like so many times for this, and really wanting this to happen, and unfortunately we couldn't release it on the launch date we expected, so we had to wait like one more week or so.
Yeah, 1 or 2 weeks I think it was.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit more about that? I don't want to be the one talking all the time.
No, it's okay. One of the really critical issues that we had that was really important was to make sure there were no files in the Git repository that we weren't supposed to share. Naturally, we have Xbox One and PlayStation 4 files which are under NDA, we can't ship them. And so we needed to scour the source tree, make sure none of those files snuck in, and make sure we weren't shipping any parts of an SDK or third-party code that we weren't allowed to. We had to check through literally every library that we used.
Everything.
Yeah, had to make sure the copyright headers in all the files were updated.
Wow.
Yeah, there were about 5,000 files that needed updating. We ended up scripting it. Took some time, but it was fun. And
so how many people were involved in this process? Everyone?
For the most part, it was me that took the lead on it. It's been the main project I've been working on for the last 5 months. Okay. Most of my GDC preparation was laying the groundwork for the release on GitHub. One of the issues in particular that we needed that we did face and needed to resolve was updating WAF. It's a really powerful system, but we needed to ship several different sets of source code. For example, some plugins and some modules aren't included all the time, and we needed to make sure that WAF could survive in any environment. It would detect whether it had, for instance, the PlayStation 4 files and enable or disable support for the PlayStation 4 accordingly. Likewise, some of the SDKs that we couldn't ship, like Scaleform, we needed to make sure that WAF was able to detect whether it was there and change the settings automatically, rather than adding instructions to people say, right, when you clone from GitHub, go and change these files in order to make it compile.
Wow, sounds like a lot. So yeah, that explains like a little bit why we were a bit late on this. For you personally, why is this important? Why did you want this to happen so badly?
Because it's more convenient for everybody. It's the natural way that people expect to get their code is half the time going specifically to GitHub and clicking clone. That's how a lot of people expect to get their code. And so that's what I really wanted to emulate. And rather than making people go out and collect all the SDKs manually, we wanted to include that so that building the engine was as simple as possible. It's not quite at the stage where you can just clone it and build it. You need to download the SDKs package, but we have a script for that now to make it a bit simpler still. And it will make upgrading to new versions and cherry-picking fixes much easier for all of our users and licensees. So
Oh, and talking about our users, we had a special thing going on for this release. Specifically, we invited some people from the community to actually help us test it before launch. And I think this is like one of the first times we've done this for CRYENGINE, and it was really, really great. So can you tell us more about that?
Yes, that was a massive help. if we hadn't opened up the testing like that, it would have been delayed for at the very least another week. There would have likely been issues that we wouldn't have caught in time. The number of different PC configurations and expectations that people had, for instance, whether to use HTTPS or SSH authentication, the number of different Git clients, be they GUI or command line, these were all combinations which combined with the different platforms we wouldn't have been able to test internally. So that was a massive help, and I'm touched, and I really appreciate the dedication those users showed to helping us out with that. We wouldn't have been able to do it when we did without that.
That's awesome. So shout out to all the guys who helped us, and thank you so much to all the people who actually wanted to help us, but we couldn't, like, schedules were not there, somebody had to go to school, somebody had to go to work. It was a bit complicated, but hopefully we can do more of this stuff in the future, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think this has been a very successful model for how it can work, and we should absolutely do it again in the future, and I have plans to. So
you have plans already? Ooh. See, we said we were going to talk about the future, but we didn't specifically say what we were going to say. So I have a question from the community. Can you please go a bit more into detail on how the branches internally relate to GitHub?
Okay. We have a central development branch. It's we call it CE main. It's where the majority of our development takes place. When we are working on a feature, we'll usually create a different branch which isn't exposed over GitHub, so that people can do their fast iterations and really have work quickly and make very quick progress. The mainstream, CE main, is protected. In order to submit to it, your code needs to pass code review. It needs to compile on a number of different platforms and in different configurations, and it also needs sign off from your team lead. The development branches don't have these changes. The task branches, feature branches don't have those changes, and so there is an overhead to them. So it does slow people down, but it's there to protect the integrity of the code, make sure we don't break compilation on the PlayStation every other day or something like that. Once features are deemed to be ready, once they've been worked through enough, the developers of those streams will pass them to QA, who will check them out, follow the testing procedures described, and then the original developer will then integrate that change to CE main. And at that point, it will be visible on GitHub. So that's pretty much how CE main works. The other branch we have is stabilization. We have a corresponding Perforce stream. It's actually called main stabilization.
That's a tad confusing.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
The purpose of that branch is really when we are in the run-up to a release, say the 3 weeks or so, 2 weeks before a release, we will lock down that branch and we will simply fix bugs in it. We will have a meeting, decide what bugs are important, what bugs have to be fixed, what bugs we'd like to fix, and then people spend the next few weeks working directly on those bugs. It's a high visibility. It's high visibility internally. We report nearly daily on the status of those bugs, and the final result is a release exactly as it goes out the door. Once we're satisfied with the quality of it, we then copy the state of that stream to the third branch, which is release, which we don't touch other than that. it's just a simple copy of the stabilization branch from
already
time to time. We have different types of releases. Minor releases, like the upcoming 5.1.1, are made by just applying bug fixes to the stabilization, and then we will copy.
That was actually my next question, like how does all this relate? So yeah, to 5.1.1 and why we decided to go with 5.1 for this last release when everybody was expecting a minor release right after CRYENGINE 5. So why did we decide to go with CRYENGINE 5.1 like about a month and a half or so after?
Because there were a lot of fixes and a lot of work went into making sure that was more stable. The technical reason for how we name our branches now is that if we branch from main if we merge from main to main stabilization, then it's a major release, a feature release. Whereas if we simply fix bugs in the stabilization branch, it's a minor release, purely for stabilization. We went with 5.1 after GDC because of the amount of changes. We also branched from main, and this was better all around, really. People got a much more stable release for it. It significantly reduced the overhead of trying to integrate individual fixes. There were so many of them, it would have taken us so long that, well, it was a pragmatic decision, and I think everyone benefited from it.
You know, I actually think I did something that I should have done at the beginning of the stream, and it's that I didn't really introduce you properly. My bad, guys. So, David, you're a senior systems engineer.
Yes, that's right.
And you just got your senior somewhat recently ago, so congratulations for that. That's
Thank you.
really, really super awesome. So tell us a bit more about you.
Well, I joined Crytek 2.5 years ago as a build engineer on the engine team, as it was at the time. In the time since then, I've been working on our internal build system, our build scripts, which run from a Jenkins server, making them cross-platform and really trying to unify the build scripts that are used throughout Frankfurt. It used to be that different projects had different build systems. There was one for Hunt, there was one for what became Climb, there was one for the engine, and they were all different. And what we've really pushed on for the last year and a half, well, 2 years really, is unifying them. And now they're all on the same system. So there's just a single code base for the build scripts that all build engineers in the company work towards.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. And let's see if they have anything from the community. No, doesn't seem that way yet. So guys, ask us questions. We have David here for a bit more time, so if you want to know more, like, he's here. He's not going anywhere. So anything else you would like to tell us? Anything else you would like to say to the community? Well, maybe the future. Some
the future.
teasers.
There's one thing that I would like to say and that is about the pull requests. Obviously, we have quite a few standing. We are not ignoring them. We are very grateful for people who have taken the time to find issues and fix them and push them back to us. There are a couple of things that we need to work out beforehand. We need to just ask people to confirm that we need to work out the technicalities of making sure it's okay for us to accept those changes into the engine and redistribute them further. That's a technical matter that's with the legal department at the moment. It will be a minor tweak. We've also spent some time working on establishing a real pipeline to get those changes in, rather than, because of the way the streams are set up, we pull from our internal Git server, which is actually a Git Fusion server, because we use Perforce primarily, and we pull from those and then we push to GitHub. And we're not able to accept pull requests directly into the main stabilization or release branches, because then if we tried, that would result in the code on GitHub being out of sync with what we have in Perforce. And if we tried to pull those changes directly back in, they wouldn't be able to pass our tests. for instance, the compile testing and the code review, our infrastructure is set up a little more for Perforce at this stage, rather than Git. This is something we will be looking at changing and updating. But for the time being, we can't. We're not able to accept pull requests directly to those branches.
Okay.
We have a pipeline at the moment. We're not yet ready to open it up for testing.
Okay.
The way it looks like we will have to do it is to have a separate branch to accept pull requests. We will then pull that into our internal server and then integrate to main, where it will then be pushed out as part of the regular update.
So yeah, that's one of the questions right now. How is the full source code kept in sync with the public one? We don't expose the streams directly to. We create virtual streams, which essentially are subsets of the files in a Perforce stream. So we strip out, for instance, as I said, all the Xbox One and all the PlayStation 4 source code. And then we expose this subset as a Git repository. So we actually have 8 Git repositories on Git Fusion. There are various combinations of just the engine with PlayStation 4, engine and PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and engine with just Xbox One. Okay.
And the same if you have the sandbox source code as well.
Okay.
And because we don't accept changes directly to those streams, to those branches on GitHub, it means that they are read-only and the changes are only flowing in one direction at the moment. That's why we needed a bit of time to work on a pipeline for accepting pull requests, and why they will realistically need to go on a different route.
You are so well spoken. Oh my god, you explain everything so well. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna chill here and watch you talk the whole stream. That's really cool. Oh, I have like a more fun kind of personal question.
Sounds ominous.
It's not ominous. Like, it's not that bad. Should be okay, I think. If you could have any feature in CRYENGINE, what would it be? Besides, of course, the make game button.
I actually started working on that.
Oh no!
I started writing a script a little while ago to take a copy of the binaries and the assets that you had in a directory and just push them externally and package them. And it's been a pet project for a little while now, and my ultimate goal is to add it as a button in Sandbox so that we can finally deliver on the most requested community feature of a make game button.
Do you actually think Samuel will let us? No.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe. Do you think you can sneak it in? Probably not.
Maybe.
Maybe. You know guys at the Sandbox. I know guys at the Sandbox. Maybe we can work something out.
I think so.
Oh, see, somebody said make game button is my copyright idea. I'm sorry, but I mean, somebody has to make it happen.
We could call it a create game button.
Okay, create game button. There you have it.
I think that would work.
Property of Crytek, June 2016 or whatever it says in the bottom. What else? Okay, in the 5.1 release of your engine, you mentioned you will deprecate support for Visual Studio 2012, 2013.
Yes, we will. No, it is just for 2012 and 2013. 2015 will continue to be supported. That's the primary version that we work with internally. The use of that gives us access to more advanced C++ features, but that's probably something that Akim and Nico can
talk about
discuss the benefits of better than I can.
Yeah. And do you estimate this will be for 5.2?
Yes, it won't be for 5.1.1. That's purely a stabilization release. We are just fixing bugs in that. I believe 5.2 will finally drop Visual Studio 2012 and 2013, but they can confirm that.
Akim and Nico behind the camera can confirm that later. Okay, we'll keep this question for afterwards. Nico is laughing. I see him like he has something to say.
He knows.
I see you. I see you. Anything? Okay, so what kind of developments or trends in your area of expertise do you see happening in the upcoming, let's say, 2 or 3 years?
Well, what we're going to be really working on now is supporting the core team in splitting up the engine from the game projects. Exactly as they are in the launcher, we're going to be unifying our internal and external development much more strongly and really committing to that, making it much easier to find any issues with that, so it'll be a much smoother experience. Obviously it takes time to fundamentally change the nature of the way we do our development, but it's the right change, and so we're going to do it. On the build side, it's mostly internal changes, to be honest. We're working on better reporting and better workflows for getting our QA teams to be able to test things much more quickly, trying to pretty much automate myself out of a job, which is largely what I consider my job to be. And that's how I think things will change. More automation, web interfaces for a lot of things to make it simpler.
Okay.
At the moment, people go directly to a file server and say, right, they drag and drop a build. We're going to try to streamline that a little bit so they don't download gigabytes of assets that they have from yesterday that are the same. And yeah, we want to make that easier for everybody.
Cool. And one more thing. What are some parts of the engine that you would like to redo or maybe refactor? If like something you would like to do or improve, but you really haven't had the time to do it yet.
Difficult one for me. I don't work so much on the engine itself. I do small things here and there, but my time is mostly spent on the infrastructure side that supports it. The main thing that I want to do on that front is give it a refresh, go over it, and we have some very good systems but they have a lot of legacy code, and one of the things I'm trying to do now, along with the rest of the people on the build team, is go through and remove the legacy stuff so that we can really focus on supporting the current needs of the engine and the game teams. By doing that, we can hopefully make things work a bit smoother and more reliably.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think these are all my questions for now. Okay. So, how are you feeling, David? Good? Anything else? Anything else you want to say?
No, I don't think there's anything else I have to add to that. Be happy to take any questions if people type quickly.
Well, actually, David is like a superstar on the forums. He's always there. He's always watching. He's always answering questions. Also in the community Slack, I have to say it. I'm sorry. I have to say he is CRYENGINE for everyone who doesn't know it yet. It's kind of like a badly kept secret. Everybody knows it's him, but at the same time, he thinks nobody knows.
Pretty much.
So yeah, if anybody has more questions about GitHub, or if anybody is interested in CRYENGINE development, you can definitely, see, Patsy for presidency, somebody knows. Somebody knows you. So thank you all for joining now. We're going to take a little 5-minute break, and while we get the other guys, but we'll be right back. Like, don't leave. Cry Patsy, cry Patsy. So thank you so much, David, for joining. This was great.
Thank you.
And we're back. How long did we take? 5 minutes? Did we take more? I don't know.
I think directly 5.
Directly
Simply
5. Okay. So, welcome back. We have Akim and Nico from the core team. And yeah, people were asking if we could have like maybe Nico first, then Akim at the end, but
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter. Both together.
Yes.
Core team representing.
Yes.
Guess?
Yeah. So we're both in the same team. So we're both in the core team. I introduce myself. Yeah, we know each other, Angela. But yeah, my name is Akim. I am senior engine programmer at Crytek. I'm working on CRYENGINE. I started 4 years ago as a junior engine programmer. Got in touch with several things, and today I'm leading the core team of CRYENGINE. And yeah, the core team is one team of the big CRYENGINE team. I can go more in detail maybe later.
Maybe
what
later,
kind
yeah.
of
We
teams,
we have questions for that.
Yes.
No worries. And we have time.
Yes.
Nico, how about you?
I'm Nico. I'm a senior
Just
systems.
Nico.
Just Nico. Nico Moss. Senior systems programmer here. Joined Crytek at the end of Crisis 3. Done a lot of multi-threading related tasks for RISE as well. And lately I have been responsible for VAF, so that's me, sorry. But I guess we'll talk about this a bit later as well. So yeah.
So, again, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. I may have bribed them with brownies. Some of you have heard this.
Yeah, we cleaned the teeth.
Yeah, they brushed their teeth before, but they ate all of my brownies. Now there are like 2 brownies left. How could you leave me without brownies? I have only eaten 1, so thank you. I have a first question for the both of you. Maybe you can answer one first and then the other, or however you guys want, however you feel comfortable. Can you please explain about how the CRYENGINE team is structured and which divisions exist, and what exactly does each team do?
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about.
Oh my god!
No, yeah, the CRYENGINE team. So we're in Frankfurt. We're located in Frankfurt, and here's not only the CRYENGINE team.
We are in Frankfurt right now.
Yes. So there are several game teams here also, and who are using the CRYENGINE. But the CRYENGINE team itself, so we're working closely with them, of course, because we are under one roof. The CRYENGINE team itself is structured in several departments, and so since the code is on GitHub, actually you can see what our modules are structured, and similar is actually how we structure our internal structure. So we have, for example, we have a rendering team which is taking care of all the API to DirectX 12, for example. A graphics team which is taking care of all the awesome visuals we have. Then there is a dedicated network team. There is animation and physics team. There is an audio team. There's a sandbox team. There's the build team where David is from just before. Then there's a quality assurance team. There's a content team, and all those teams work together to build this whole CRYENGINE. I hope I didn't miss any. I'm sure I missed any. Oh, the core team.
I was gonna say you missed yourself.
Yes. The core team is also one besides that. So this is how the teams are structured here. So everyone knows what to work on, and people might ask what the core team actually is. And the core team is nothing less than making sure all those systems can run in the engine. So if you the community now has the chance to look into our code on GitHub. So if you get the chance to look at that, there's CRYSystem, and CRYSystem pretty much reflects the core team, plus extra things. So the system takes care of multi-threading, about the memory management, about file reading, file read input and output. There's also the CryEntity system, which we take care of the input system, and it goes even further to CryAction, but this is actually where it already gets kind of blurry, because in CryAction you have, for example, FlowGraph, which is very close to the sandbox team again, and you see already that there is no strict line in between all those teams. It's more or less people have responsibility for special modules, but we all are one team and all work together on the whole thing to get a good result.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe Nico can guide us a bit more, since you've been here since Crysis 3. You can tell us more about, you know, the history of CryEngine and how did we get until what we have today.
Well, I mean, yes, the history of CryEngine, basically it's been a very professional product, which we open to licensees, and we're going to go all the way now to, I mean, use for everyone. It's free. I mean, you can download it, which obviously changed the structure a lot from Crysis 3. What we have changed a lot was that all the games had their own copy of the engine, which also meant that features that were developed during that time while the game was made might have taken 2 years until they actually reached the actual licensee. So with 3.5, we started slowly going into the direction that everyone's using the same engine, the same core. So when 3.6 was released, they had a lot of RISE features in it, like physical-based rendering, geometry caches, but I mean that was very late for all the licensees, which obviously kept on asking, so we want this stuff. Yes, so from that we learned, and we decided to make a clear cut, and like all the new projects, we tried them to base them all on one engine. So that's basically the reason why VAF was released as well. Because it kind of supported the like modularization a lot more. I mean, every game has their own little modules in the project. They all have their own little things that they want to do, like I can't remember. So basically, you had a much faster production rate, and therefore people or teams could actually push back certain features a lot faster into the engine. Obviously, it has been a process which is now slowly completing. In that regards, all the game teams they are currently pushing all the stuff back, like virtual reality. I mean, this is great work from all the guys who did the dinosaur demo. All that stuff is coming straight back, and obviously coming to you guys as well, so you can use it straight away. So therefore, the next step probably would be for the future that we kind of remove the game side from the engine itself. At the moment, like internally, we'll still have Game SDK, for example. In our root folder, we still have Game 0, but we do want it to be a lot more stripped away. So basically, the game team in-house as well, they basically just use the engine as a pure customer, as a pure client. So therefore, that it's a lot easier. They will always be on the latest code, and therefore contribute back as well. So it's probably like another thing of how do we manage to integrate all the stuff back and forth. I mean, it's not easy if we have a change list which is 1,000 files big or something, but yeah, you have to go through it. Obviously, sometimes, unfortunately, I mean, even we get all these nice tools these days, there are some merge errors that come through. I mean, these are obviously then bugs that we have to tackle, but I mean, it's a risk worth taking. So getting features to everyone basically, so they can use them and then flag them so they don't work, or they say awesome stuff. It's always a great thing to have.
Yeah, I agree. At least coming from the community, looking at the forums, looking at what people want, we basically should be transitioning from Game SDK. We can start doing new things now.
Yes, especially like with, I mean, with obviously always trying to have a more stable engine. If you use the engine at the time of Crysis 3, everyone knew what to do and what not to do maybe, because you know you're going to break the engine that way. I mean, now that everyone is using it, yeah, we have to make sure that it is stable in whatever you guys want to do, whatever game, whatever crazy idea you have, that it doesn't actually break the engine. So it's a lot more easier to use as well. It's been a lot more documented, a lot more unification, which we try to put in, which we are always still working on. There's a lot of areas we can always improve. I know, such as there's a lot of streaming engines at the moment within the engine, so resource management is a big issue at the moment, like we might want to have a look at. Yeah, so these are the things that we're basically working on at the moment.
So I wanted to go back to what Achim was saying before about, you know, all the different teams and specifically about what the core team is doing. And this question actually comes from Seth from the forums, and it's, can you talk a little bit about what CRYENGINE encompasses and at what point things stop being core?
Okay, so yeah, this in principle I covered that already. This is very much how the systems work together. So CRY system, entity system, script system I just read. Also someone asked about Lua, how this is tied to the entity system and what is our future on this. So Lua itself, how we see it currently, it was an approach to simplify to create new entities for artists, for example. However, this never really worked out that well because it's somewhere in between. Artists don't like to, okay, this is an assumption right now, but so it often requires a programmer to get this entity completely written in Lua. So this is why we look into several different directions also how we can improve this. So we already did some improvement to simplify the use to create new entities. So recently, if you're familiar with it, the .entity files got removed. They are now listed in one file actually, pointing to the Lua files which should be loaded, just to simplify this how we currently create entities. And we're looking into better possibilities even. So yeah, but to just get back to the question. So yeah, entity system, script system, input, those are in principle the main modules the core system is working on. We're also working on the interface to the games more. So everything which is CryGame SDK or Game 0 or CryAction is also in our hands, but this is very blurry because other teams also work on this. Yeah, so when he mentioned the stripping out of Game SDK, actually to have it separate on a marketplace, this was a huge step for us actually. I mean, some people might say, okay, now it's difficult if I want to get started with the Game SDK. If I want to make a first-person shooter game, I have to download Game SDK again. But this is intended. So, because we don't want people starting with a full-blown game in the beginning and then see what they have to remove to achieve their goals. So, Game 0 is the start for a new era of game development based on CryEngine. So we can. That sounds very marketing-like, but it wasn't prepared. So what we're targeting for is that you can have Game 0 to get started. You create a project. It can be anywhere where you want it to be located on disk. And then you should be able to easily extend this. And until now, Game SDK was the only thing you could use to get started. But we want to give the community the chance to extend that by using other features which anyone implements or we implement or themselves. So.
And there is a question from the stream. Maybe Nico can answer this one, or I don't know, whoever wants to answer it. Is a part of CryEngine 5's core engine inherited from CryEngine 3's core engine, or was CryEngine 5 implemented from 0?
So
No.
depends which CryEngine 3, right? I think was it 3.8, 5?
6.
3.6.
Last one was 3.8.6.
Yeah, so 3. No, I meant like 3.6 is CryEngine Crysis 3 engine. I think before they were together, like you had the actual CryEngine and you had Crysis 3 development, and they pulled all the features over to the actual engine. Whereas now it's one engine. So it is based on Crysis 3. It is basically Crysis 3 code with some of the features from the actual old engine. And this is all gone now into CryEngine 5 in that case. So obviously there was no CryEngine 4. But yes, so I think, yeah, CryEngine 5 is a new era, as you said already. So it's a new start for us as well to obviously get the community involved and get it forward, basically.
But it's not like we rewrote CryEngine 5 from scratch. So CryEngine 3 was a base for CryEngine 5, of course. So the core, as it is right now, is an improved version of the CryEngine 3.
Yeah, I mean, we
adapt.
did refactor a lot of things in CryEngine 5. I mean, that's why it's probably a big gap as well.
Yes.
Fortunately, CryCommon changes we had to make later, so it's easier for people to get used to CryEngine 5 and then come to 5.1. But I mean, there have been internally, we removed a lot of macros that we used, defines, tried to have a more platform-like approach. I mean, all the Cry_ platforms, they all got introduced. You have more power on, even if you want to do floating point exceptions, it's more like unified. Priorly, it was not really possible because you had not like a very unified thread system. So now you do have a unified threading system which is data driven, so anyone can change it. They just open the file and put a few different affinities in, and that's changed it already, which is probably more usable on consoles. But that way we also in control of all the threads as well. So when we crash, we can stop all the threads that we want to stop, and then start one again to, for example, take a screenshot. This wasn't possible with CRYENGINE 3, but with 5, because the architecture allows it a lot more.
Okay, I have another question from the community, and it actually goes with what you were saying before about how all the game teams and different licensees were using the engine and implementing tools they wanted, like they needed for their specific game. So what's the process for integrating technology from licensees into main? And maybe do you have an example of something that specifically comes from a licensee that we didn't implement in-house?
Good question. You want to answer?
So, yeah, sure. So, I mean, in-house technology integrations are a good example because we are treating the game teams here in-house similar to our licensees.
Yeah.
So, the advantage we have here, of course, is we have one shared server. So the Perforce server David talked about, it's a shared server for the game teams as well, which allows us to do this back and forth integrations. So having main as the main engine and the game teams contributing to this and integrating it back and forth helps us a lot to improve the engine. And also it gives us the possibility to give out to the community what we're currently in-house developing on. So this is the easiest approach to get licensee features. So it's in-house game tech features, basically. GitHub plays a huge role in this, actually, because this allows us now to get pull requests from licensees and to make it easier to integrate this. Because the other way for licensing back integration is usually through our kind of ticketing system where they cannot tell us directly where problems is, where we solve the problems, or they can contribute to the engine. But of course, it's not a good way to integrate code into the engine, and GitHub will help us a lot on this side. Yeah.
So thank you. We have another question from the community. What's the current state on CryAction, and what are the plans for the future, if any?
Well, I think that kind of goes with what you already mentioned, that we're going to go more modular. Game SDK has already been kind of stripped out. It's separate. So I think CryAction, I'm not sure if it's going to stay, but it's going to be stripped in regards of what is CryAction. I think CryAction has grown over the years, and it's like everything that's kind of game but didn't fit in anywhere, it got into CryAction. So if we want to have separate systems, we want to have separate modules for it, so you can just plug it in and be a lot more extendable. So again, saying modularity, having more modules you can play with, that's probably the future that we're working on. It's probably going to take a while, but that's our plan, that we have separate systems rather than one big module.
And now that you are talking, Nico, I would like to ask you, what are any plans for mobile VR and platforms?
Mobile, that's a good question. We are
Because we don't really talk that much about that.
Yeah, I mean, mobile is certainly a market that we keep an eye on. I mean, we did do Crysis 3 on the Tegra Android platform, but that was because it had a very powerful graphics processor in it as well. So, I mean, not saying, I mean, the mobile market is catching up a lot. Maybe the commercial mobile market is not quite there yet, they're getting more memory. I mean, we have the problem sometimes that we do eat a lot of memory. So I mean, the old days, mobile wasn't really for us. But these days we're getting closer. Graphics is obviously always our main thing. So if you tell the rendering guys they can't do their graphics features, maybe they're not the happiest people in the world. Yes, we also come from a background where we support consoles but not mobile. So the mobile platform in itself has very different challenges that we would have to tackle. So I think we'd rather at the moment concentrate on the platforms that we do them well, fix all the bugs on there. That's saying we're not going to forget about Android. We do have Android running. So Android VR for wireless VR, which is quite a nice thing. So I think, yeah, we're going to keep an eye on this as well. But yeah, it's not in development at the moment.
And any specific blockers for this?
Blockers. I just like have more CPU power, and well, the problem is, I guess, we are not optimized for energy as well. So
yeah, I would like drain the battery in 10 seconds.
When we had the Tegra tablets, they got quite hot, and you couldn't. Yeah, you had to put them on the power supply. I mean, you could play for a while, but you'd probably not be happy. Like if you're on the train commuting home, and half an hour later, or an hour later, your phone is dead, and you can't get home because you can't call someone to pick you up or taxi or something. So something that we haven't looked into. That's, yeah, we have to learn how to do it as well.
And we're gonna go with the more personal questions again, like we did for David. So, is there anything in particular you would like to see in the engine?
Well, I always like to see more multi-threading. So
multi-threading.
I mean, the news with the Intel news with the new i7 coming out, where it can have up to 10 cores or 20 hyper-threaded cores. That's got to be nice to have. I don't know, maybe it can, yeah, so I think making multi-threading easier for the masses, because it's always like a kind of a black art. You can do a lot of things wrong. If you want to secure that the user's doing it right, you can make everything very slow. So it's a very balancing thing to do. So I would like to have a more threading API which is more easier to use for everyone.
And you, Achim?
I'm so serious.
Yeah, he's doing that, he's serious, and now he's sad. You made him sad.
No, I'm not sad. I'm serious.
While smiling. I'm so serious.
No, my contribution to this question is actually, so I would like to see open world more on the engine, and this goes together actually with the multi-threading a lot, which actually goes together with another question if we're working on a new entity system. So I cannot tell anything about this right now, but multi-threading is pretty important, and our entity system currently doesn't allow this. So we're looking on several ends. We're looking into more multi-threading the engine to make it more streamable, and this is the direction we are also going towards open world. So open world is not just a feature you can just add on top of the engine. It's something which affects all the different modules, and it has to be planned wisely. And so this is my personal point of interest. Also. Yeah.
And leaving aside our desires, let's talk about what's going to happen. Let's talk about a little bit of 5.1.1. Like, what do we want to have with our upcoming release that should be soon? I'm not going to say when soon. Maybe Achim wants to say when soon.
It should be very soon. So 5.1.1 is a stabilization release, so called minor release. And as David mentioned already, they are based on a previous release, which is 5.1 in that case. And on the minor releases, we are aiming for stabilization. So we're not adding a lot of features in there. We're not changing the interfaces on that. It's purely for stabilizing the build. So whenever you upgrade to 5.1 and you run into bugs and are really blocked or annoyed by this, it should be communicated on forums or the answer hub, and then we can address this during our stabilization, which is 5.1.1 release. And yeah, to I'm not commit to anything right now, but it's pretty close, so it should be a couple of days until it's released.
Oh, yeah, most of the fixes are from you guys, so reporting stuff on the forum. They're all taking into this release, so that's where you get it back and hopefully enjoy it. Working.
Well, you've been on the forums a lot recently as well. You joined a while ago, but now you've been super active. I've seen you. I'm always on the forums, always looking. And you as well.
I'm absorbing most of the
Yeah.
time. I'm in an absorbing mode. I'm on Slack and forums, and yeah, I like to read the
He's on
information,
Slack.
but I'm not typing a lot in there.
Yeah, but see, it's good that you guys are way more. What's the word like?
Involved.
Yeah, that's the word,
Yes?
exactly.
Okay.
That you are way more involved because you can see what the people are looking for and you can actually react on it. And now that you're saying 5.1.1 is going to be mostly fixes requested from the community, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be happy. So,
Mhm.
yeah, guys.
Hope so as
I hope so as well.
well.
Are
Yeah.
there any plans to release beta builds of the engine for the users to test before full release?
Well, we kind of have the main branch that is available on Git, right? So
So
stabilization.
yeah, the stabilization branch is basically this kind of thing on Git. So or am I
Yes.
repeating what you said?
No, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, the stabilization branch is that period before we release. So if people are really keen on seeing what we are going to release with the next release, it is in stabilization, but we still stabilize that in there.
Okay.
So if that answers the question.
I mean, if you want to already move towards the next engine release, before we actually release it, and you use the stabilization branch, I mean, that also means we're not going to, most likely not going to put huge changes into that branch.
Correct.
So it's, if you then get the actual release, there won't be that many changes left for you if you do have to resolve something, if you have changed the engine code, so source code. So that's one of the main ideas as well. So you can already work in advance a bit, and then, yeah, have everything at your disposal on the day it comes out.
And when is 5.1.1 coming out?
I answered that already.
No, you said soon.
In a couple of days, I
In
said.
a couple of days. Okay. Are you guys happy with in a couple of days? I mean,
It's Saturday.
in a couple. Yeah, Colin is here, and he just said Saturday. It's not gonna be Saturday. Don't believe him. Another one. Any plans to include other essential entities back into the Game Zero project, such as Rigid Body, Cloth, Wind, that was on Game SDK?
I can't answer that question because that's mostly physics. So, but in general, what we're gonna do is we're not gonna remove Game SDK. So whenever you need to use something of Game SDK, you still have a reference. Game Zero is currently something which we have to build up. So I said moving Game SDK was a big step, but now we are slowly starting to add these functionalities into Game Zero step by step. So right now, if you get started with Game Zero, you will still you still cannot use all the features in there, but many of them were actually purely game specific, and we want to separate engine from game. Because right now with Game SDK and CRYENGINE, this line is very blurry, and we have to improve this.
So now let's talk a bit more. Continuing talking about the future, is there anything that you would like to see implemented in the engine? And is there, but not you personally, and is there any, okay, let me rephrase.
What's the community
Rewind.
question? What should the community implement?
Well, actually, what would you like the community to implement? That's a good one.
Yes, so this is tied to...
Nico.
Okay. You want to answer?
No, you answer.
Okay, so with Game Zero, this will open up. So what we are also working on currently is to make the engine more extensible. So we want to have this system of plugging in new features. So for programmers, could be a DLL which is added, and then you instantly get new flow nodes. You get new plugins in the sandbox, for example. This is not what we have right now, but this is what we are heading towards and what we want to have. And the question what the community can contribute there is actually we allow them to write engine extension. They can extend our engine functionality by adding their own systems, and they can share it on the marketplace. So they can share their what is the word? Their progress. Yeah, their products, and even can gain some money out of that, or they can just share it for free. So this is something where the community is very encouraged to help improving the engine. Yes.
And you, Nico, what would you like to see?
I was going to hook on that on the Visual Studio compiler question earlier, because there's one of these things as well. If you have all these plugin support and you constantly have to build all these different Visual Studio version types of DLLs or any other thing that you want to have, and you're going to have a lot of trouble. I mean, that's why when we were moving away from, or we're deprecating it, because as well, I mean, we internally want to use C++11 to its full extent as well. Not all the features, but there's a lot of good features in it. And I mean, yes, Visual Studio 2012 has C++11, but it's a very stripped down version of C++11. So 15 actually now with update 2 has almost everything. So that's what we want to use when we actually program in-house as well. We use C++11 at the moment. We're not going to upgrade to a newer version internally. I mean, that's the way we're going to do it. But I mean, C++11 has a lot. It's very powerful already. So just to make sure everyone can use it. And I mean, yes, that's the main reason. It's part of, I don't know what I want is to have the community implemented. Can't give you an answer on that at the moment.
But okay, and when do you think, not when, where do you think the technology will go, at least for us, for CryEngine, where do you think we will be in about 2 or 3 years? Or where would you like it to be?
I mean, we have a strong focus on VR. VR is a big thing. It's not just the Climb what we just released as a VR title. There are areas where VR is really important, and for the future, also with mobile getting more stronger, and maybe it's tied together at some point with wireless VR headsets or something like this. This is a direction where we will be prepared for, at least. So yeah, so this is pretty interesting stuff. Okay.
And we have a question about Vulkan support. I actually had that on the list. Vulkan support.
Vulkan support, yes. We do have it in development. As mentioned earlier, we do. It's one of the reasons as well is because we want to keep our options open with the supporting Android or going back to Windows 7 if we want to, because we're going to go to the X12, and obviously there are some issues. So the Vulkan support is in development. As of when it's going to come out, I can't tell. So it might be it might be soon, I don't know. But yes, so we are looking into this.
Ooh, people are happy, in development. Mm-hmm. So I am actually running out of questions, guys. But if there's anything else you would like to mention, or if you guys in the community want to type something really quick for Akim and Nico from the core team, just go ahead and do it. But do you have anything you want to say? Anything you want to add?
Also, I mean, this getting involved with the community, personally, for speaking for myself right now, so that I'm on Slack and checking the forums and even talking on Twitch here right now. This is my personal interest in the community and hearing feedback from them, because they will be the guys actually using the engine, and it makes sense to to make it as convenient as possible for them to use the engine. So it's always good to get feedback, and so this is what I want to say to the community.
Big thanks.
Yeah.
And we're gonna obviously going to work on getting the documentation a lot better as well. I mean, Colin is doing an awesome job getting the videos out to help you guys actually getting started, how to use the engine, how does it work, how does the new editor in Qt mode work, and how to get used to it. So, I mean, we have made a lot of big changes for 5.0. I mean, editor Qt, that was a big rewrite of the whole editor. It just doesn't happen overnight. All the old plugins, they all had to be ported and had to make usable and had to be maybe redesigned a bit. So it's good, very good work from Sam as well, keeping that kind of on track and keep supporting that as well and pushing it. And yeah, just use the stuff and tell us if we broke it or not, or if you think it's good, then tell us as well. I mean, we're always happy to hear feedback, because obviously we do think about how we implement certain things. If everyone's going to use it, maybe some people are not happy about it, maybe some are. We are humans ourselves, so we use things certain ways, and maybe everyone else uses them differently, but we try to make everyone happy, so make big things.
Can we send a T-shirt to Steel?
I don't know. We'd have to
Can't
ask.
read the name.
We'd have to ask. Okay, what I'm gonna do, because I read something about a T-shirt. I'm gonna see if we have any leftover shirts, and then make a giveaway like we did a few months ago before GDC. So Achim, you can do the honors when it happens, if it happens. I'm not promising. I'm not promising anything. No, you're gonna do like a handwritten note. Yeah, handwritten note, like thank you for your support.
Signature.
Sounds good.
Achim and Nico, what's your favorite game?
I think I have to go really far back, because I think Theme Park and Theme Hospital were one of the best games. They're really old, but I love to play them for bits, and I still love to play them. I mean, you can just get them on the old school stuff, and they're hard. It's not easy to do, so it's very challenging games.
I actually remember this from the written interview that we did like months ago. the Dev Space.
Oh, that one.
Oh, that one. Yes, that one.
So it hasn't changed. It's still my favorite
still your
game.
favorite. And how about you, Achim?
So the last game I played was Tomb Raider, and I'm still playing on it. I'm not a guy who...
The new one?
Both.
Both.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm not playing it all night long. I just play it one evening, and then the next week again, and I always play it with a friend. It's so cinematic, so you can one plays, the other one sits beside and talks some garbage.
Okay, so you like more social stuff. You like games where you can just hang out with your friends. You don't want to be like super invested in it.
Yes.
That's fine. So any more questions? I think we're good, guys.
Bye bye, serious Achim.
Bye bye, serious Achim. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. This was really, really awesome. And thanks to David over there, who stayed the whole thing. And thanks to Colin over there, who lied to all of you and said it was going to be on Saturday. It's not going to happen. And thank you to Richard for producing our stream in the in the backstage. And of course, thank you all so much for joining. And we hope to see you next time. The question is, when is next time, guys?
No idea.
It's up to you, right?
Up to me.
Oh,
I have to make more brownies. Okay, so thanks again, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.